record this. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm so glad that you were able to join us this morning for our second edition of the Spring 2022 Professor Circle. As you may recall, this particular series is looking at dismantling deficit thinking in the academy. And I'm happy to announce for those of you who were notified that you were book winners, guess what? The book is now here. I got scared for a minute and thought that they weren't going to get it to us until after tax day. But they have arrived and they are here, and I will be sending you again an official notification to come on by and pick them up. This morning, I'm very, very happy to be joined by Melissa Bowles-Terry, who is the director of the UNLV Faculty Development Center. And we thought that it would be really, really great to utilize this particular session to talk about the Equity Institute. And so without any further ado, I am going to welcome Melissa to the platform and have her take things over. Thank you, Melissa, for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Barlow. Really happy to be with you all this morning to talk a bit about an initiative from the Faculty Center in the Office of Online Education. And I actually noticed a couple of you in the audience have taken this online class. So I'll be happy to have you all chime in at any point today as well. But I'm here to tell you a bit about the UNLV Equity Institute, which is an online class that we've offered for faculty members twice now. We just wrapped up our second online session, and encourage anyone who'd like to participate in our next round in May to join us. So the UNLV Equity Institute is a four-part, four-week class that we've been able to offer online that walks faculty members through some pretty basic stuff, but it's new to many, about equity in the classroom, meaning how do we build classrooms, both online and in person, that are welcoming, that are equitable, and that are spaces where our students can learn and grow and thrive. So we divided the course into 4 modules. It begins with an introduction to UNLV's equity mission. And this has content about UNLV's status as a minority serving institution, a Hispanic serving institution, an Anapeasy institution, and what that means for us. And it also has information about our student body, what's our student body makeup. And then module 2 is all about our students. Module 3 asks you to think about yourself as an instructor. Although I will say that the course is open to faculty members of all types, including administrative faculty, including classified staff, graduate students. It's been open to everyone. And so we invite folks to think about how they can make use of this information in their advising practice or their work in student affairs. We've had several folks from the libraries take it. So it's not just those who are leading a class or teaching, what you think of as like a traditional class, but folks who work with students in any context, really. And then module 4 is about pedagogy and how do we put these things into practice, in our practice, whatever that looks like. The reason that we created this course is that we think it's important to create classroom communities that are inclusive and equitable for our student body. The provost has supported this with a $500 stipend for everyone who's completed the course. So in the fall, we ran a session with 130 participants, and we just wrapped up a spring session with 100 more participants, and we'll offer it in May and hope to have another large group of folks join us to spread the word. So our course outcomes we're looking to introduce participants to digital equity through these inclusive instructional practices. We provide participants a place to learn and talk with each other. So we have small group discussions as well as larger group discussions. And then it does aim to be really practical in terms of asking folks as the deliverable for the course to tell us what they're going to change in their practice, how they've changed their syllabus or assignments, or how they're implementing what they've learned into their courses or their practice, whatever that looks like. Some of the participant comments, overall, it's just been very positive. And like I said, we've had about 230 people complete the course, which exceeded my expectations. I had sort of small ambitions for this, hoping we could get 30 folks or so to take the class. But an incentive from the provost office helps. So a lot of folks have found it really useful. So this is one participant comment. Someone who's teaching her very first course took this online course in advance, and she found it useful thinking about her first time teaching. And yeah, just folks have seen a lot of value in this so far. The course was developed as part of a partnership between Online Education. Absolutely could not do this without their expertise. They do such a good job of building like a nice structured Canvas course. So there was a whole team of folks who helped with that, as well as my colleague Francesca Marineo from the libraries and Jessica Soria from the MSI Student Council, who just was super helpful providing us with the student perspective and really helped us with a lot of content for the course. So this is a little preview, a little look at Module 1. This is what we're doing in that first module of this class. And then these are a few of the UNLV folks who contributed their thoughts, ideas, experience, and expertise. So last time the Professor Circle met, you actually heard from Chelsea Heinbach talking about deficit thinking. So she did a video for us and some content about dismantling deficit thinking that's part of the course. We have Cassandra Rodriguez from sociology talking about what she does in her courses to build a more equitable space, and Dr. Han Fen Hu from Lee School of Business talking about what she does in her classes to create a space that is inclusive for all students. So we haven't yet put the call out for the May session of this class, but you can expect to see that after spring break. We need to figure out who will facilitate it and what the dates are exactly, but we are going to offer it again in May, and I hope that you'll consider joining us. And I just saw in the chat that Shala, Anna, and Jen all chimed in. They're all here. They took the class. So I'd love it if any of you want to tell us what you learned, like what were your takeaways, what were you able to implement?
Who goes first? Hi, everyone. I took the class. Is it okay if I go first?
Please. Yes. Awesome. Thank you.
And I really appreciate for everything that you did. I know that it was a lot of work, including the course, and my major was multicultural education. Even though I was familiar with a lot of aspects and content of the course, but still the course was very helpful for me. In somehow I realized again as a student, I need sometimes, time, or communication with others, something that it was also helpful for me as I teach at the same time my courses too. It was very helpful. It was a kind of reminding for multicultural education, for diversity, equity, all these that we need. We know a lot of those aspects, but still sometimes reminding, the areas and some other information that it was very helpful about university and, the history of UNLV. I didn't know about those. Very good information. I really liked the course. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
For me, it was really helpful just to get a chance to reevaluate how I do my work in reaching and working with students, because sometimes we get so used to the routine of it that we don't really get a chance to stop and reflect on what we're actually doing. So last semester in our professor circle, we really talked about what it meant to be serving and looking at the mission statements that we have as an institution and how the verbiage on there reflects the work that we want to move forward doing. And I was able to really see that in the work that we were doing in the initial classes for this institute. And one part that really resonated with me was the whole section on looking at the land acknowledgements and the usage of and what that means and how that really impacts the way we can reach students and show students how to look at broader perspectives of inclusivity and diversity in the world around us in different ways. And so I've been able to use those tools to get my students talking in other ways in my class and asking them to provide other ways that they have seen themselves or have not seen themselves on our campus. And so it's been really, really helpful and useful. Thank you, Melissa. You're awesome.
Oh, you're kind, Anna. Thank you. One thing I'll mention, since Anna brought up the land acknowledgements, is we've had a really rich discussion about what it means to include a land acknowledgement in your course and how it may not go far enough. So one suggestion that we got from a participant this round was, she said every time that she's making a public land acknowledgement, not in a class, but like at any kind of event, she also donates to the Carol Lee Dodge Francis Scholarship at UNLV, which supports Native students. And I would just really shout that out as a way to make your land acknowledgements more meaningful, which would be to give to supporting Native students here. So the class has just brought up a lot of interesting and challenging ideas like that. And some of the other challenges, and difficulties that we've faced with this class is it's pretty basic. So there are a lot of folks on campus who already have expertise in these areas or who are already doing this kind of work. And this class is probably too basic for them. So we've talked about, what would a part 2 look like? What would advanced study in this area look like? And right now the provost is really committed to getting as many people versed in kind of the basics as possible. But that would be something that we'd be interested in talking about for the future. And I had another challenge that I was going to bring up, but it left my head for a moment. Does anybody else want to chime in on what they've been able to do with their own practice based on the class? Jen or Chelsea? Hi, Chelsea.
There's a question in the chat from Blanca. Can you share more information about participation? How many participants across faculty ranks?
Oh, yes, Blanca, that's what I was going to mention, actually. So we have had more folks take the class who are women and faculty of color, as you might expect. The people who tune into this and who choose to join in are, in many cases, not fully representative of the faculty as a whole. So that's, another kind of interesting challenge. And in terms of faculty participants across ranks, it has been pretty spread out. We've had, I think, more assistant professors than any other sort of type of faculty, but also a lot of non-tenure track faculty, faculty in residence and lecturers, visiting assistant professors. So the folks who are really tuned into the teaching mission, a lot of those folks have taken it. And actually this semester we had a lot more graduate students take the course, which I'm delighted that we were able to include graduate students because, they're like next gen, shaping the next iteration of what higher ed looks like. So I was glad we were able to include them. I'd love to have more associate and full professors take the course. So yeah, that's a good question. I'm gonna stop the share actually so I can look at my participant information and tell you more about that, because I have.
So is there any incentive that's given to faculty who participate?
Yes, so faculty who complete the course get a $500 stipend. And again, that includes graduate students, classified staff. Because when I presented this idea to academic council, actually one of the deans said, well, if this is an equity institute, then it seems it should be equitably offered to folks across campus, and you should include classified staff. And there was some, administrative like, oh, we don't know how to pay them, our systems don't work, but we worked it out. And so anyone who's interested can take the course and receive that $500 stipend. Other questions that you have?
So what do you think is maybe a factor or a main factor that keeps like your tenured faculty or our tenured faculty from getting involved in? Is there anything that, like if you could, wave a magic wand, to get them involved?
Yeah. It's a good question. I mean, I think, a stipend only goes so far, because really, if you're going to commit 4 weeks to this, you have to have intrinsic motivation as well. You need to want to do this. And I'm just not sure that there's been, enough of a cultural push that like, this is who we are. Like, we're a minority serving institution and we value teaching and we want to do the best job that we can. So I think we need more pressure, more like culture change around that to get more folks involved. And in terms of keeping the conversation going for faculty who have participated, we just had a wrap-up session on Monday for this second session, the May course, and one of the participants asked, she said, well, how can I find other people who've taken the class? Is there like a directory? Can we have an alumni event to get everyone together? So there definitely is interest in that. And one of the things that we did with this course is we put a badge on it. So if you're familiar with badges, it's a little micro credential that will follow you around. So folks who took the course may have this badge in their email signature, on their LinkedIn page, on their faculty website, any place like that. So if you spot a little Equity Institute badge, that's one way of seeing people who have completed this course. But we are also thinking about how do we want to create a directory or a series of alumni events or something. For this spring session, we had 4 sections of the course, and they were all facilitated by folks who took the course in the fall. And so now folks who completed the course in the spring, we're looking for folks who might be interested to facilitate the next few sections in May. So we are continuing to engage folks that way in terms of like, now you've taken the course, you can lead discussions among your colleagues about the topic. And we would also be interested in doing like college specific or even department specific sections of this, because now that the online course is developed, it lives in Web Campus. It's a really nice structured space. If you have a facilitator who's taken the course, they can, run it for 25 more people. We won't have the stipend going on after May because we're using CARES Act money and some other grant funds that were associated with COVID relief. So we can just do one more section with the stipend, but then hopefully we'll be able to do some college and department sections to keep on using that Web Campus course.
Blanca, okay, go ahead. No,
Hi, Melissa. Hi, Melissa. I'm trying to figure out ways to get the word out also, but what benefit would it be for someone like me who's not faculty to take the course? And my second question is, how have you worked maybe with the first year seminar and second year seminar instructors?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so good question. This spring we did a session that was all administrative faculty, and a lot of them do work with students directly. There were a lot of advisors and student affairs professionals who were in that section, but they aren't teaching in the classroom. And they all found, I think, really practical ways to think about the content in their own practice. So I think that there is some benefit there. And then this time around, we also ended up talking a lot about hiring and how do you bring this kind of equity lens to your role if you're a supervisor on a hiring committee. So there are obviously a lot of applications outside of just like the classroom, even though that is still our main focus because we want to make an impact on students.
So there are a couple of questions in the chat, and I also want to follow up on what Ann was saying, particularly as it relates to first year seminar. I mean, would that be necessarily a heavy lift? So that's my question. And then Blanca suggested, have you considered a faculty learning committee on the topic? And then from Laurel, are any faculty alumni collecting data on the impact of their changed practice on student learning or engagement?
Mm-hmm.
So
well, I love the idea of a faculty learning community. I think that would be, I think that could be a really powerful instrument for change, especially since there is already, a large group of folks who have at least begun to engage with these ideas. So I think that's an awesome idea. And then in terms of collecting data on the changed practices, we haven't set up anything specific on that, Laurel, but we should talk about that, especially maybe for first year seminars, like Dr. Barlow suggested, and Anne asked in her question about first year seminars. I had dreams of, making this a required course that every new faculty member would just be enrolled and they'd have to take it. But there's some resistance to any required anything, like people should do it of their own volition, I guess. But yeah, I'd love to talk with you, Laurel, about doing something specifically for first year seminars.
one of the things that occurred after our last semester series that Doctors Watson and Racone facilitated so beautifully for us, and I continue to thank them for doing that, is that they have developed really a book club with individuals who were interested in delving into that topic even further. So, I mean, I think that becomes some of the things that Blanca was talking about in terms of faculty learning communities, because one of the good things about this, I think, is that we're doing it. and that it's being done. You know, I'm not sure that these types of initiatives or programmatic efforts would have been even thought about 10, 12 years ago. And the fact that they're not only thought about, but actually put in place, you know, it seems like that, you know, within time, those numbers will go up, and it'll be just part of the fabric, which is what I think that we're all wanting our deliveries to be in terms of UNLV particularly, and specifically being an MSI, being an HSI, being an ANAPZ, being a majority minority institution, that we want those things just woven into what and who we are.
Yeah. And going back to one of Blanca's early questions about the makeup, pulled up my registration data. So this was the pilot cohort that we did in the fall. So you'll see it was mostly assistant professors in the fall, but with a wide range of other folks, a lot of faculty and residents as well. And then when we did this again in the spring, it was a very different makeup. We had a huge group of administrative faculty who signed up this round. And like I said, quite a few graduate students, and then a mix of other types of faculty. So that's where we've been so far in terms of the makeup of the classes.
Do you think that maybe in that the one that had the large number of administrative faculty, do you think that many of those individuals may have been first year seminar instructors?
A lot of them were advisors. It was
Okay.
It was like a big group of advisors this time, and quite a few folks from student affairs. So yeah, we've definitely had some folks who are first year seminar coordinators, but that would be an interesting kind of like focus area for a next round.
Mm-hmm.
I've been having these thoughts. I attended the last one with Chelsea. Thank you, Chelsea and Roseanne. And you know, as a data person who works in data, it's a lot easier to put people in buckets and try to study them that way, or you know, help them in that way. And this is kind of dismantling how I would have to operate. So I'm just kind of curious, Melissa, if there's a way we can, you know, through the Faculty Center, that we could carry on that conversation on how to really, you know, study our population without trying to put labels on them. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but you know, it's just been something that I've been thinking about, and I'm curious, you know, with all the participants here today, you know, what are your thoughts on, you know, how do you really study, you know, our student population without having them, you know, kind of categorized? And I love the idea of not putting labels on people, but it's hard not to, you know.
Yeah, I'm with Blanca. Tell me more about what you mean there.
Well, I mean, we when we look at the students who use our services in tutoring, supplemental instruction, coaching, all that kind of stuff, the ASC stuff, you know, we try to disaggregate it by student to find gaps of, you know, who do we need to maybe target in terms of is there a particular population of students, you know, by ethnicity that aren't using the services that we could get information to. And so those are things that are that kind of drive, you know, some of how we operate, not all, because, you know, we do have a majority of the students that are, you know, across the board in terms of people who are using our services. And so, but when I when I run the data and I see, oh, we have, Hispanic males who aren't using our services, it kind of concerns me, that either one, we're not getting messages out, or two, that I don't know. I don't know how to explain this, but then it worries me that we're lumping people in these categories that, are not necessarily who they are, because when stories get told by the students, it's so fascinating, that their life experiences are so diverse and poignant, and then you add all the layers, if they're low income, if they're first gen, if they're of any kind of ethnicity, it just complicates things. And so disaggregating it means that I have to, kind of tease apart other variables, I think. So, and that makes it hard in statistics. Hi, Doris.
Yeah, I think I understand, Ann, what you're saying. And it kind of falls in for me with this whole area when we talk about deficit thinking, because obviously if we're looking at the data and you're disaggregating the data and it says that this student population, is at risk. Okay, let's just say that, right? Then when we're reporting that information and things of that nature, when the student either goes into the classroom or into an office or whatever, the people that they're dealing with have that deficit thought. And I mean, it's kind of like, how do you deal with that? Because I think that we do have to be knowledgeable of the issues and concerns that our students in particular may face on any given day, but they are certainly more than that one label. Right, hence intersectionality, shameless plug, right? But I do understand exactly what you're saying. How do we navigate that without the labels being a negative factor in terms of how we do things, or a deficit in how we do things?
This is Doris. I don't know if I can, I completely agree. And I think it's how it's framed is very, very important. And so I guess I would ask to segue off of Dr. B's response in terms of deficit thinking. I would say if we know, so if you know, Anne, and it's nice to see you, if you know that you have a segment, you have a student population that's not accessing your services, if your only knowledge of them is coming from your lens and you haven't actually reached out to sample, for example, right, a student population that is having issues, like why are they not? If we're not asking them, then we are supporting deficit thinking and we are labeling, right? Oh, well, Hispanic males or Latinx males don't access this. So, but if we're not going to them to understand what are, and I think Harriet said this, and I think you did too, the confounding variables or context that these folks are navigating that has resulted in their not accessing those services. And again, it goes back to not to replay not to replay Blanca and I's sessions from last week, but how are we untangling our vision of how we're serving students? Merely having the programs is not in and of itself sufficient. It's good, but it's not in enough sufficient for their truly accessing it.
Mm-hmm.
That helps. Thank you, Dr. Watson.
I just think these are really important conversations too. I just want to say this. I think it's so important to have spaces like this where we can have folks ask these kinds of questions, because we are at not the tip of the iceberg, because that sounds super dubious and maybe even nefarious, given what we know about icebergs and ships, right? But we are at a point in time where we are really starting to excavate what it means to serve a diverse student, staff, and faculty population. And it's only through these kinds of discussions and work that we can make that happen. So yeah, thank you.
Laurel put in the chat, I think there's a big difference between studying what students actually do using disaggregated data versus trying to predict what they will do using disaggregated data. That prediction can reinforce assumptions that are damaging. I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Mhm.
That kind of just feeds into that whole deficit thinking, the whole entire thing, you know. Any other comments or questions? Discussions? Well, if not, I guess I will let you all have some of your time back this morning on this March, first Wednesday in March, hump day, Professor Circle. I want to thank you all for coming. Again, Melissa, thank you so much for being a part of this Professor Circle and talking about the Equity Institute. Of course, you know that if there's anything that the intersection can do to help in any way, you know, let us know, let me know, and we'll just do what we can. As we always say, you know, we'll pilot something to see if something will work and be of help. As you know now, April 6th is our last Professor Circle for this semester. I can't believe that we are already talking about a last for the semester. The semester is over. I can't believe that. But in that particular session, we will be looking at dismantling deficit thinking, utilizing a toolbox. Emma Bloomfield, Assistant Professor of Communications, will join Professors Doris Watson, Assistant Professor Blanca Ricone, Associate Professor Anthony Farrar, to provide a toolbox of alternative strategies and educational principles that have the power to transform the classroom. I want to thank everybody for coming and really thank you for participating in what I hope is just one thing that continues to help move the needle as we become a more serving institution, as Dr. Watson was saying, serving our students, our faculty, and our staff. Thank you again, and see you next month.
Thank you for getting us all together.
You're welcome.
Take care. Bye-bye.